A quick update here as it relates to the Bulls free agency that is scheduled to begin this weekend. The Bulls have extended qualifying offers to both Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu, which was to be expected. AK even said as much during his press conference after the draft. He was actually asked point blank if they plan on doing so, and he had to check with PR on whether he could share that information, and then stated they would be extending qualifying offers. So what does this mean for those who might be a little newer to the game and the business side of the NBA? Well, after players finish out their rookie scale contracts, in the case of Coby, 4-year deal because he was a first-round pick, and in the case of Ayo, 2 years as he was a second-round pick. But after that, teams have the ability to tender qualifying offers to their players whose rookie contracts are expired, which means said players will become restricted free agents once free agency begins. And the main difference between being restricted versus unrestricted is that restricted free agents can obtain offer sheets from other teams, and in this instance, the Bulls would have the ability to match any offer sheet their player receives to retain them. Now, if the player doesn't get any offers, meaning no team tries to pick them up, the Bulls would then retain them on a 1-year qualifying offer. And after that 1-year deal, they would become unrestricted free agents the following offseason, unless of course the Bulls extended them early. I believe the qualifying offer for Coby White was $9.9 million, and then for Ayo it was around $3 million. So if neither of these players get offer sheets, the Bulls would be able to keep them on those contracts for 1-year deals, which is kind of significant because going into the offseason, when estimating the Bulls cap situation for free agency, analysts have been going into it with the mindset of a higher cap hold for both Coby and Ayo, because again, the assumption is they will get some kind of offer sheet that would be higher than their qualifying offer. Especially Coby, you'd have to think he's at least going to be making closer to $12 to $14 million based on his production, his overall improvement last season, and the fact that he's young, he can shoot and handle the ball. There are going to be teams interested in Coby, but I guess the question is, will those few teams who have cap space, will they have the space to sign him after all the other players they would be looking to sign? The challenge being a restricted free agent and what they run into when it comes to obtaining offer sheets is unless you're a prominent restricted free agent that teams are after, you're likely one of the last players on the market to land a contract. Remember Lauri Markkanen? Bulls extended him a qualifying offer, free agency hit, Markkanen was looking for a contract, but the cap space for most teams had dried up, and he was one of the last free agents to sign a deal in that summer of 2021, which was a sign and trade, of course, where the Bulls signed him and traded him to the Cavs in that 3-team deal with the Blazers, which netted the Bulls Derrick Jones Jr. and a first-round pick. Now, I do expect Coby White will be getting an offer of some kind, and the Bulls will match said offer unless it's something ridiculous like $18 to $20 million a year, which I can't see happening because not a lot of teams have cap space this offseason. And those that do, they're not going to be spending the bulk of their cap space on Coby White, let's be real. But say in the event Coby doesn't get an offer sheet, cap space from teams dries up, or Coby is looking for too much money, more than teams are willing to pay, that actually is pretty significant for the Bulls as it relates to their own cap sheet and the added wiggle room they have going up against the luxury tax line, because at just $9.9 million, when the cap hold for Coby has been closer to 14 or 15 million, gives the Bulls extra money to spend while remaining below the luxury tax line, which means potentially using that full mid-level exception to maybe sign a solid shooter for this team. There's been talk that Max Strus could command the full mid-level exception, although I think he's personally going to get a bigger offer sheet than that. That is if the Heat don't re-sign him, which I think is still the most likely outcome. But adding Strus to this roster, while also retaining Coby White on a smaller deal, that's a pretty good scenario for the Bulls, or it would also leave enough room to sign a guy like Seth Curry without having to go into the tax, maybe even a player like Donte DiVincenzo, who is now a free agent after declining his player option with the Golden State Warriors. Again, I think it's unlikely because Coby will get an offer of some kind, and the Bulls will match, which will make them hard-pressed against the luxury tax to be able to have enough money to sign some of these players that I just mentioned, but it's also not out of the realm of possibility depending on how the free agent market goes and whether there will be enough money to go around for all these guys. And then of course Ayo, I could see Ayo getting a small offer from a team that needs a young, solid defender, hard worker, athletic player. I do think the Bulls would match, although again, it depends on the offer because the Bulls have to prioritize shooting and Ayo is not a shooter. And depending on how much they sign Coby to, it's possible there just isn't enough money left over for Ayo. Again, assuming they're not going to be going into the tax, which I think we all know is going to be the case with this ownership. I've said before, I think the Bulls will ultimately have to choose between Coby and Ayo and who they re-sign because of how close they'll be to the luxury tax line with both players without giving them the ability to sign other free agents using that mid-level exception. But we'll see how it shakes out. Don't forget, free agency begins this Friday starting at 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to know a lot more in the coming 1 to 2 weeks on what the Bulls roster will look like. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video on any updates, and I will see you guys in the next one.